Summary of the Fifth Child by Doris Lessing. David and Harriet fall in love at their office Christmas party. They decide to get married. They look for a house outside of London where they can settle down and start working toward a goal that surprises them both, having a big family with up to 10 kids. The house they find is huge and exactly what they had hoped for, but it costs a lot. They will have to wait a few years before they can start having kids. This will give them a double income until David moves up in his design firm's pay scale enough to pay their home on his own. But almost right away, Harriet gets pregnant, and in 1966, Luke is born. They ask James, David's rich father, for money and Dorothy, Harriet's mother, for help taking care of the new baby. As soon as they move in, David's father, David's mother and her husband, Molly and Frederick, and Harriet's sisters Angela and Sarah, along with their families, come to visit. Harriet gets pregnant again the same year, and the rest of the family comes to their house for Christmas. Soon after, Helen is born, and the rest of the family keeps coming to see them. Sarah, Harriet's sister, fights with her husband, William, but they can't get a divorce because Amy, their fourth child, will be born with Down syndrome. This is how the family parties go on, and in the meantime, Jane and Paul, Harriet and David's third and fourth children, are born. At Easter, William says what the rest of the family is thinking, that Harriet and David should stop having kids. Harriet says that they want to wait 3 years before having more children. Sarah, Harriet's sister, is annoyed by how much help Harriet gets. She asks Dorothy to come help her instead, and Dorothy agrees. Harriet tries 3 different girls as babysitters, but none of them work out. Harriet finds out that she is pregnant with her 5th child. This pregnancy is especially hard for her. When Harriet and David tell Dorothy that she is pregnant, she scolds them for not being responsible and says that they treat her like a servant, but she decides to come back and help out with the help of Alice, one of Frederick's cousins. After only a few months, Harriet's 5th child is already moving around a lot and trying to tear its way out of her stomach. Harriet goes to see Dr. Brett because she is worried, but the doctor says there is nothing unusual and gives her a medicine to calm her worries. Harriet also asks her friends for more sedatives to hide her addiction from David. Harriet says they can't have Easter in the way she is, but the rest of the family insists. The worry of Harriet's impending pregnancy has made everyone angry. At 8 months, Harriet starts having labor pains. She gives birth to a boy who weighs 11 pounds and looks like a caveman. He is surprisingly strong. He is called Ben. The child is cruel in everything he does, even when he is nursing, and he doesn't seem to know who his family is. Harriet also doesn't love this child as much as she loved her other children. They wonder almost right away, what is he? People in the family tried to answer this question by whispering things like goblin, dwarf, troll, changeling, and gnome. Harriet and David stop making love because they are afraid they will have another child like Ben by accident. Harriet locks Ben in his room alone because he is a danger to others. However, Ben hurts Paul's arm by pulling it through the bars of his crib, and then a dog and a cat are found dead, which seems to be the result of his violence. People are scared of the strange child, so they don't come to the house as much. When Ben is 18 months old, Dorothy offers to watch him alone for a week so that the rest of the family can go on a trip. They go on vacation to France, where they feel better right away. When they get back, Dorothy gives them a hard piece of advice: Ben needs to go to an institution. They say no to this idea, and Harriet starts to focus on Ben on her own. Ben starts to talk in short words, copying what his peers say and do, but he can't do the same things on his own. The Christmas after Ben turns 3, his whole family sees him following Amy's big dog, which is her friend and protector. This makes Frederick suggest that they put Ben in a home. David asks how they'll pay for it without a diagnosis, and both sets of his parents say they'll help. David takes over the process of getting Ben ready to move out, even though he doesn't like that they keep pushing him. Harriet protests because she knows that Ben won't live long in such a place, and David says that Ben is not his son. Once Ben is put in a car and taken to the place where he will stay, his family can feel the relief. But Harriet can't stop thinking about what happened to Ben, so she insists on going to see him. At the hospital, Harriet runs past dozens of drugged and scarred children to get to Ben, who is wearing nothing but a straitjacket and sleeping on a urine-soaked couch. She knows she has to bring him home after seeing this. The orderlies are worried about how she will handle him, so they give her medicine to help her sleep on the way home. When the family gets home, they are shocked to see Ben in Harriet's arms. She sees that the only way to get him to stop being so bad is to threaten to send him back to the hospital, which works to stop him from being so bad. David doesn't care about Ben. John, a young guy, helps the family with yard work, and Ben likes him. Harriet suggests that John take care of Ben and let him go with John and his friends wherever they go. John does agree. Harriet and David take a weekend trip together to spend time together. Harriet suggests that they have more kids, but David is totally against the idea. The rest of the family comes to visit during the summer, but Molly and Frederick don't come because they can't forgive Harriet for bringing Ben back from the hospital. Harriet and David can't put Ben to bed anymore, so the other kids lock themselves in their rooms so Harriet can't check on them or tuck them in. Luke and Helen want to go to boarding school when Ben is 5, and their grandparents have already agreed to pay for it because none of them like Ben. It also becomes clear that Paul's lack of care has left him with mental problems. Ben is finally old enough to go to school. Harriet expects bad news from his teachers, but they say that he tries very hard even though he doesn't understand the lessons. At the end of the second term, Ben loses control and hurts a little girl by knocking her down, biting her, and breaking her arm. Harriet says she will send him back to the hospital, and John talks to Ben and tells him why he can't hurt other people. Harriet also asks Dr. Brett to set up a time for her to see an expert. She is afraid that he will tell the doctor that the problem is with Harriet and not with Ben, and her fears come true. She hopes that this new doctor will be able to figure out what's wrong with Ben, but Dr. Gilly, an expert, says that the problem is that Harriet doesn't like Ben very much. After some back and forth, Harriet asks the doctor if the child is human, and he seems to be open to the idea that he might not be. Harriet thinks Ben is from another time, but the doctor tells her she doesn't know enough to say that and wouldn't know what to do even if she did. Harriet settles for a prescription for a drug that will calm Ben down in a pinch. At Christmas, the bigger kids don't want to go home. Instead, they choose to spend the holidays with their grandparents. Dorothy gives Jane a stable place to live with her, they send Paul to a therapist, and David works more and more to pay for all of these extra expenses. John says he's going to school and will be moving town. Ben asks John to take him with him, but this isn't possible. Ben still can't understand how people interact, how stories work, or how to play games. The family looks forward to and worries about Ben becoming a teenager. In 1986, when everyone is home for the summer, Paul asks to go to boarding school like the other kids. At the end of the summer break, Ben goes to middle school and brings his friends Derek, Billy, Elvis, and Vic home with him. Harriet wonders if these boys feel sorry for her son, but he seems to lead them, and the whole school is jealous of them. Ben and the gang go missing for days at a time, and Harriet sees an increase in crime in the area and wonders if Ben's gang has something to do with it. David and Harriet decide to move, but David suggests that they don't tell Ben and his friends where they're going. Still, Harriet gives Ben her address, but he throws it away as if he doesn't care about staying in touch with her. Harriet sees Ben hanging out with his friends one night and wonders what will happen to him. She wonders if he has found his group in these other boys, or if he'll never find another person with whom he can fully identify.
About the author. Doris Lessing was born in Iran, where her father worked as a clerk at the Imperial Bank of Persia. Her parents were British. Soon after that, her family went to southern Rhodesia, which is now called Zimbabwe, to farm. Even though her father had hoped to get rich there, the plan didn't work, and the family stayed poor. She first went to a Roman Catholic boarding school for girls. When she was 13, she went to school on her own. Before she turned 30, she got married twice, had 3 children, got divorced twice, and moved to London with only her third son and her unfinished first book, The Grass is Singing. She got involved in communist, anti-racist, and anti-nuclear activity in London, which led to her being watched for 20 years by the British intelligence services. The Golden Notebook, her most famous book and a feminist classic, looks at mental and social breakdown, socialism, anti-war efforts, and the women's liberation movement. These were important parts of her life, and they show up in her work. By the time she died, Lessing had written more than 50 books and won nearly every major literary prize in Europe, including the Nobel Prize in Literature. However, she turned down damehood because of her troubled relationship with the British Empire. She died in 2013 when she was 94 years old.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.